UP Visayas, and UP Mindanao. We also have representatives from the government, from the Department of Agriculture, BAFS, NMIS, BIFAR, FBA, FDC, BPI, NFRDI, PCA, PhilMec, PhilRice, and from the Department of Health, from the FDA, the National Nutrition Council, RITM, and from the Department of Interior and Local Government. We also have representatives from collaborating non-government organizations such as the FEO and the WHO. We also have representatives from different collaborating institutions and relevant stakeholders. We're also joined today by students, faculties, researchers from different state universities, private universities, as well as participants from the industry. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of one of our research speakers for this webinar, Mr. Dion Mahoney, Dr. Agnes. Thank you very much, sir. Good afternoon. Dr. Agnes Agunos, Dr. Hans Marvin, Dr. Yamine Buzembrock. Thank you very much. And now, we would also like to acknowledge the presence of the Dean of the UP College of Home Economics. Thank you very much for your interest and for sharing with us your valuable time to participate in today's webinar. We shall now see the webinar program containing the program schedule for the week-long webinar. For today, we shall have the opening program, an overview of the PRPP, as well as the overview of the workshop topics. And then later in the afternoon, we shall have a question and answer and to be followed by our closing program. For the succeeding days, we will be joined with various research speakers. For February 3, our day 2, the topic will be on risk assessment and overview. And as we have mentioned a while ago, our research speaker will be Mr. Dion Mahoney. We shall also have our day 3 about the topic role of risk assessment in public health with our research speaker, Dr. Agnes Agunos from the FAO Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. For our 4th day, we shall be joined with our research speakers, Dr. Hans Marvin and Dr. Yamine Buzembrock, talking about the big data in food safety and food fraud. So that will be it. That will be the progress of our webinar series. And now, we shall be sharing the webinar reminders. To all the participants, kindly note the following reminders for this webinar. We would like to inform the participants that the whole webinar will be recorded for documentation purposes. Please sign the attendance for today's webinar through the Google form that will be announced and sent in the Zoom chat box. We would also appreciate it if you would fill out the evaluation form through the Google form that will be provided at the end of the seminar. You can access the link at bit.ly/capital FSRA101-pre-D1 and bit.ly/FSRA101-post-D1. For a smooth discussion of the topics, we will be automatically turning off your audios while the presentation is ongoing. Audio will be turned on for everyone during the question and answer after the lecture. So for any questions regarding the topic, you may type it in the Q&A chat box, and an upvote or a similar question, you can also raise your hand during the Q&A portion. For the following days of the webinar, to obtain a certificate, please make sure to accomplish the attendance and quizzes provided. A certificate of participation will be sent via email to participants who have signed the attendance and answered both quizzes for each day of the FSRA 101. Moving on to our main agenda for the webinar today, to officially launch the Food Safety Risk Assessment 101, FSRA 101, Basics of Ensuring Food Safety from Farm to Fork, a tripartite sub-series webinar series, we would like to introduce our resource speaker for today. Our resource speaker is Assistant Professor Abigail S. Ruscha. She is a faculty member at the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, College of Home Economics of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She is also the project leader of the DA-BAR funded Mango Project and the DOST funded Philippine Food Safety Risk Profiling Project, and has taken over the Corn Kits Project funded by the DOST Pishard. Our resource speaker has undergone numerous training programs, including the Microbiological Risk Assessment Program of the ASEAN-Australian Strengthening ASEAN Risk Assessment Capability to support, Risk Assessment Capability to support Food Safety Measures project. During her time as a senior research specialist at the National Food Authority, she was assigned as the head of the Technical Working Group on Risk Assessment of Aflatoxin in White Corn and became a member of the ASEAN Expert Group of Mycotoxin Profiles. As a research specialist, she evaluated chemical contaminants based on dietary exposure assessment using microbiological and chemical risk assessment as a tool to generate sound technical data in the programs of food control agencies in the development and implementation of food safety and quality standards in the Philippines. She also handled the NFA, FDC, DA-BAR project on achievable levels of cadmium in seafood for export. In her time as the faculty in her time as the faculty in charge of the UP Pilot Food Plant, UPD DOST NCR Food Innovation Facility, or the UPFIF, from 2015 to 2020, she has spearheaded numerous research and development projects on food safety and food processing technology, including the utilization of mango and the development of 35 prototypes using the DOST High Impact Technology Solutions, or DOST HITS equipment of the DOST HITS equipment. She has also been inducted as an associate member of the National Research Council of the Philippines Division 5 for the Biological Sciences. Without much further ado, may we call on the project leader of the Philippine Food Safety Risk Profiling Project, Assistant Professor Abigail S. Ruscha.
To begin our sub-series, I would like to once again greet everyone a good afternoon. To begin our sub-series of webinar this week, I would like to give you an introduction to the project behind this week-long event, the Philippine Food Safety Risk Profiling Project. The Philippine Food Safety Risk Profiling Project, also known as the PRPP, is a 3-year project under the DOST Integrated Food Safety Program. It is an initiative funded by the Department of Science and Technology and implemented by the University of the Philippines, Diliman, particularly in my home college, the College of Home Economics, Department of Food Science and Nutrition. The project is led by yours truly with the aspiration of changing our national response towards food safety issues from reactive to preemptive through the establishment of risk profile. To give you an overview, I will be talking about how this project was conceptualized, its background, the project team, its scope and activities, as well as how we intend to communicate with the general public. Starting with history, my background and interest in risk assessment has been forged in my experience as a recipient of the ASEAN Australia Development Cooperation Program on strengthening the risk assessment capability to support food safety measures project back in 2006. From then, I had been exposed to different studies and endeavors on risk assessment. The proposal for the PRPP has been or had sorry the proposal for the PRPP had been conceptualized early in 2017, but it was only on October 4, 2018 when it was presented to the DOST Committee for approval. The project was formally approved by the DOST PSHERD on October 25, 2018 through the notarization of the MOA. Upon this, a team has been identified by the project leader to be part of the project to turn its visions and goals into actions and concrete results. The team includes 13 science research specialists and several project assistants. Project staff including Dr. Kashana Blanca Villarino and Miss Wendy Leda from UP Diliman College of Home Economics, Dr. Crisanto Lopez of the Ateneo de Manila University, and the late Dr. Alonso Gabriel. And we are also in close communication with our technical advisors, Mr. Dion Mahoney and Dr. Erniel Barrios, for risk analysis and statistical science, respectively. The mission of the PRPP is to contribute to the national goals for food safety by providing support initiatives for the Philippine National Food Safety Risk Managers with a vision to have a safe food for everyone through science. Our main objective is to provide food safety risk managers a due share of information on the evaluation of food safety risk and to help the food safety risk managers prioritize food hazard food commodity combinations for risk analysis. To achieve this, the PRPP seeks to identify and prioritize food safety issues, bridge information on food safety gaps, and establish risk profiles of hazards in food commodities relevant to the National Food Safety Risk Managers, Department of Agriculture, and the Food and Drug Administration, which will further the conduct of risk assessment and may potentially improve the culture of response towards food safety concerns from reactive to preemptive approach. In consultation with the relevant stakeholders, the following list shows the food hazard food commodity combinations under the study by the project. These are verified with some even requested by the Philippine Food Safety Risk Managers in response to food safety issues faced by the country, such as the possible risk of heavy metals due to the Taal eruption and the presence of methanol in Lambanog. Note that the combinations in this list are still under the study and should not be taken out of context. The PRPP follows a systematic process in risk profiling. Some of the activities are coordination with relevant food safety regulatory agencies and other relevant stakeholders, capacity building of potential risk assessors and leaders in risk profiling, development of risk profiles through narrative review, validation of food safety information, and bridging gaps in food safety data by analyzing the exposure pathway of the hazard in the food chain. Generation of hazard contamination data where needed, peer review of risk analysis expert, review of the draft risk profiles, consolidating the final documents into a dossier, and cascading the knowledge and process of risk profiling to representatives of the relevant food safety regulatory agencies, non government organizations, and academe. We have already started our initiative in cascading knowledge through face to face seminars in 2019. With the onset of the pandemic, we encountered setbacks which we turned into challenges, and thus we have conceptualized a webinar series of capacity building activities to support Philippine food safety efforts entitled Pagkaing Pinasafe. The first of this webinar series launched last December of 2020 with the aim to strengthen the capacity of potential risk assessors in conjunction with the functions of risk managers in data collection for food safety risk profiling. And now, with the objective to capacitate individuals with knowledge and awareness on the general aspects of food safety risk assessment, we are officially launching the Food Safety Risk Assessment 101, Basics on Ensuring Food Safety from Farm to Fork. This is a tripartite sub-series, and we have invited international experts who we are excited for all of you to meet and learn from. Tomorrow, February 3, Mr. Dion Mahoney, our risk analysis expert and food safety advisor from Produce Marketing Association, Australia New Zealand Limited, will give us an overview on risk assessment. Following that, on February 4, we will meet Dr. Agnes Agunos, who is with Public Health Agency Canada and previously associated with the UNFAO. She will be discussing the role of risk assessment in public health with a subtopic on antimicrobial resistance, her field of expertise. And for the last day, we will have experts from the Wageningen Food Safety Research, Dr. Hans Marvin and Dr. Yamin Buzenbrak, to speak about big data in food safety and food fraud. We hope to see you all for the next couple of days. Meanwhile, we would also like to share the publications of the PRPP, especially our food safety briefs and infographics, which are also available in our official social media accounts. We are in Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Adding to the fact that we are forced to convene online because of the restrictions of this ongoing pandemic, we are in the age of technology, thus almost everyone, especially our young people, are absorbed in the internet. We hope our presence in these social networking sites will be able to bridge scientific information to the general public in a manner that anyone and everyone, especially the Filipinos, can understand. With this, I would like to end by saying food safety is everyone's responsibility. Let us all partake in our journey to pagkaing mas pinasafe. Thank you and good afternoon.
Foodstuffs presents
Ano ang PRPP? Sa pamumuno ni Assistant Professor Abigail S. Roscha, na-conceptualize ang proyektong Risk Profiling of Hazards in Philippine Foods to support national risk management sa pagitan ng UP Diliman at DOST. Ito ay binansagang Philippine Risk Profiling Project o PRPP. Bakit may PRPP? Para maintindihan kung ano nga ba ang kahalagahan ng PRPP, talakayin muna natin ang mga sumusunod. Food Safety Act of 2013, Risk Analysis, at Risk Profiling. Ang Republic Act No. 10611 o mas kilala bilang Food Safety Act of 2013 ay may tatlong layunin. Protektahan ang publiko sa mga sakit na nakukuha sa pagkain at tubig at mga pagkaing marurumi, hindi kaaya-aya o hindi ligtas. Mapagtibay ang tiwala ng industriya at ng consumer sa food regulatory system at makamit ang pag-unlad ng ekonomiya sa pamamagitan ng pagsulong ng pantay na pagkakataong makibahagi sa lokal at pandaigdigang kalakalan. Alinsunod sa Food Safety Act of 2013, ang risk analysis ay isang science-based na pamamaraan ng pagsasaliksik tungkol sa food hazards at risks na dapat maging basihan ng gobyerno sa pagbuo ng mga batas at pamantayan patungkol sa pagkain. Ang risk analysis ay binubuo ng tatlong hiwalay ngunit magkakaugnay ng mga elemento, ang risk management, risk assessment, at risk communication. Ang risk management ay proseso ng paggawa ng mga alternatibong polisiya at pamantayan patungkol sa pagkain na nakatuon sa pagprotekta sa kalusugan ng mga Pilipino at sa pagsiguro na patas ang mga gawi sa kalakaran ng pagkain. Ang risk assessment ay ang siyentipikong pagsusuri patungkol sa panganib na kaakibat ng pagkain na maaaring may masamang epekto sa kalusugan ng mga Pilipino. Ang risk communication ay ang aktibong palitan ng impormasyon sa pagitan ng risk assessors, risk managers, at publiko. Unang hakbang sa risk management ang risk profiling. Ang risk profile ay isang dokumentong nagsusuri ng level ng panganib na maaaring maidulot ng kontaminadong pagkain. Dito maibabase ng mga risk managers ang mga panganib patungkol sa pagkain na dapat nilang pagtuunan ng pansin at ang mga datos na dapat pa nilang ipakalap at ipasuri bago magbigay ng desisyon at polisiya patungkol sa mga panganib na ito. So ano nga ba ang gagawin ng PRPP? Layunin ng PRPP ang makatulong sa mga ahensyang nagsusulong ng food safety sa bansa sa pamamagitan ng pagsasaliksik ng mga impormasyon ukol sa hazards na maaaring kaakibat ng ating mga pagkain at ang kaugnay na panganib na maaaring maidulot nito sa ating kalusugan at pangangalakal ng pagkain. Paano nila gagawin ito? Sa pamamagitan ng risk profiling. Sa paggawa ng risk profile, ang PRPP ay kakalap muna ng mga datos ng consumption, outbreak, at detention na konektado sa pagkain para makapili ng food hazard combination na kanilang pagtutuunan ng pansin at kanilang gagawan ng risk profile. Sa bawat napiling kombinasyon ng pagkain at hazard, ang PRPP ay gagawa ng review ng available na impormasyon para malaman kung ano ang mga kulang na datos na kailangan pang saliksikin. Matapos nito, ang PRPP ay komprehensibong mananaliksik mula sa produksyon ng pagkain hanggang bago ito kainin para malaman ang point of entry ng hazard sa pagkain at ang kaukulang panganib na maaaring maidulot nito sa kalusugan ng mga Pilipino. Ito ay ginagawa upang magkaroon ng sapat na datos na pagbabasihan ng pagbuo ng risk profiles. Makatutulong ang risk profiles na ito sa pagpapalaganap ng impormasyon na siyang magduduktong sa puwang sa pagitan ng mga producers, processors, at government upang maabot ang layuning maprotektahan ang kalusugan ng mga Pilipino at masigurong tama ang mga gawi sa pangangalakal ng pagkain. Para kanino ba ang PRPP? Para sa mga National Risk Managers. Layunin din ng PRPP ang makumpletong proseso ng risk profiling at maituro ito sa mga kinatawan ng gobyerno, ng mga organisasyon kaugnay sa pagkain, ng akademya, at ng iba pang mga relevant stakeholder. Para saan ang PRPP? Higit sa lahat, ang PRPP ay para sa bayan. Ang misyon ng proyektong ito ay nakaangkla sa Food Safety Act of 2013 na makapag-ambag sa pambansang layunin na isulong ang food safety sa pamamagitan ng pagsuporta sa risk management. At sa hinaharap, nais ng PRPP na masigurong may ligtas na pagkain, sino man at saan man, kahit sino at kahit saan, sa tulong ng agham. Sino-sino ang bumubuo sa PRPP team? Ang PRPP ay isang independent body na binubuo ng mga mananaliksik na pinangungunahan ni Assistant Professor Abigail S. Ruscha na makikipagtulungan sa iba't ibang ahensya ng gobyerno, organisasyon, at akademya upang maisagawa ang risk profiling of hazards ng mga iba't ibang Pilipinong pagkain. Sa pangkalahatan, ang PRPP ay isang proyektong naglalayong mapalakas ang risk management system ng bansa, mapalawak ang kamalayan ng publiko sa food hazards, mapagtibay ang mga polisiya sa food safety, at makatulong sa pagsugpo ng mga panganib na kaakibat ng mga pagkain sa pamamagitan ng risk profiling.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Ruscha, for that very informative presentation, as well as the video about the PRPP at the very end. So for now, we have seen the overview of the project, as well as the plans and the workshops to be conducted. We are now ready to open the floor for your questions. This is the time for us to raise our interest or our the points we would like to be discussed, for which our project leader, Assistant Professor Rusha, would be glad to answer. For anyone who would like to raise a question or start a discussion, may we request that you mention your name, your agency or the agency to which you belong, and your designation so that we may properly address you. And then you can proceed with the question itself. Or you may type it in at our chat box, and I would be happy to read it out loud for the rest of the group. We will have ample time to discuss or to start the question and answer portion. So for anyone who would want to ask, please feel free. Don't be shy. We can also opt to you can also opt to raise your hand so that we can unmute you and we can let you ask the question yourself, so we could encourage a more interactive discussion. We have one question from May we know the okay. We have from Mr. Lester de la Serna of the PCA BARMM. They asked if they asked Professor Ruscha if this is some sort of a manual.
Mm. Hi, good afternoon, Sir Lester. So, with regard to your question, if this, what do you mean? This the whole seminar will be coming up a manual. So basically, the all the materials that we will have a manual for this, but this will be presented later on towards the end of the project. But we already came up with a manual on risk profiling, particularly for chemical and microbiological risk assessment, which we developed with our food safety advisor, Mr. Dion Mahoney. So this is still in progress for further printing. We will let you know when this manual will be available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Ruscha, for that, and for Mr. Lester for that question. As we wait for additional questions, we can also read on I can also share some of the questions which have already been asked and answered earlier. Someone has asked if they can secure a copy of the presentation later today. We regret to say that we cannot provide you with a copy of the presentation, but please note that this webinar series, as well as for the rest of the webinar series on the days ahead, are to be uploaded or will be available through our YouTube channel, the PRPP YouTube channel, for which you can review and play back the recording. So we also have questions asking if they can still sign for the attendance in the pre-test link. Yes, you may still access the attendance through our form, which you may see at the chat box. And you may still view the webinar today for 24 hours once it ends through our YouTube channel. The link is also at the chat box. You may also use this time for the rest of our participants. You may also use this time to answer our pre-test and pre-registration our pre-test link for the assessment quiz for the assessment quizzes. So
Okay. There are also other questions such as, may I know the status of the project? How many years will it take to finish? So currently we are on the third year of the project, and hopefully we can complete all the deliverables until the end of the year. Another question here, since only select commodities are profiled, will this project be continued for the future when the need arises? Example, new risk and food commodity combination. So basically, we are trying to capacitate all technical personnels from the different agencies, both in the DA and the DOH, no, the food regulatory agencies, and some research institutes. So if they can later on, actually they can be requested to do the risk profile, or perhaps they can do a project on that. But if they do need our services, we can work on it through a project basis. So I think that will be the trend. Another question here. Hi, as food safety risk manager of a private food service company, can we also participate in this project? So basically, you can participate as a collaborator in terms of assisting us perhaps in the provision of data, particularly on chemical data and microbiological data, if you wish to share with us. No? So you can participate in that way. Another question here, are the developed risk profiles available to public? Definitely the developed risk profiles will be available in public, only until we completed all the review of the documents that we prepared. And actually, these documents we prepared will be presented to the National Food Safety Regulatory Agencies because they are the food safety risk managers. So basically, this will be a public document which will be available to the public. So another question here. For the several risks to be studied by the project, will it include recommendations, procedures, corrective actions for the incidents as such? Also, will this be specific or contextualized for micro and small enterprises or those who are just starting up with their businesses? So basically, the risk profile, no, I think this is just a jump start. No, this is just an orientation of the activities that we have for the whole week. But I think you will have an answer to this later on if you completed the seminar series up until Friday. But to give you a hint of what you would like to know, I would like to tell you that what you call this, the risk profile will give or will present to you information that will be used for policy decision making. But definitely the term recommendations, I think you will understand later on that the recommendation word will be contextualized in the in risk analysis later on. So if this is specific for micro and small, so if you realize risk profiling or risk assessment are tools in the development of standards. So we are uh, we are helping gathering data in the process of development of standards. So when we have later on this information for standards, then this standard is will cover all, no, not specific for micro and the small scale. So can you expound on the food hazard commodity combination? How do you plan to communicate the results of this, or how do you think this may be relevant to government agencies who may need this kind of info? Example is in the development of the food safety research agenda. So with regard to the question, can you expound on the food hazard commodity combination? So if you have an pre knowledge or pre information with regard to risk assessment or risk analysis, the risk analysis is a tool to develop standards. So when we develop standards, of course, the issue is with regard to the hazard and the commodity of concern. Say, for example, we are trying to develop cadmium in seafood. So we're trying to come up with a standard of cadmium in seafood. Then that's what we call the food hazard commodity combination. And that is very specific, one-to-one. So how do you plan to communicate the results of this? So we plan to communicate by having the articles, no, the published information that we presented before. So we also have peer-reviewed journals, and then we will come up with I think similar gathering, no, to present to you all the information that we have later on. So another question here. Sorry. So do you think this may be relevant to government agencies who may need this kind of info? I think it is very important for the government for the information that we're going to provide, because our main objective is to provide them this information to assist them in coming up of policies for food standards, for food safety. So yeah, I think yeah, they can be incorporated, no, in the food safety research agenda. So another question here, what would be good for sanitary inspectors working at local government units in relation to food safety risk assessment? Also, what about meat inspectors? Thank you. So I think all these questions will be answered towards the end of the week. But of course, you will later on understand, no, the who are the persons who have jurisdictions on this type of activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Professor Ruscha, for answering our participants' questions. And to all our participants, thank you very much for your interests and questions. We still have a few inquiries through our chat box. But first, uh, we will just like to answer again the question regarding attendance, certificates, and pre-tests. Uh, the link can still be accessed. Please feel free to sign in your attendance, and the pre-test will be covered there. So the link will be bit.ly/FSRA101 pre-D1. Assistant Professor Yusha, we also have another question from Mr.
Sure.
An.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
Yes.
So another question here, can our unregistered colleagues also watch the YouTube video so webinar could be shared to them? Um, yes, I think you can share the YouTube video. Yeah, definitely. So I also got other questions here. So from DOST Region 3, uh, has an ongoing project on risk profiling on street food commodities. Maybe their output can also be used or future collab with your team. Why is it that ethnic foods from different regions in the Philippines are not considered for risk analysis and profiling? Okay, so I think it's the same question, you know. So if you will understand later on, the basis of doing risk analysis is anchored on the two objectives of the codex, which is there really a public health concern? And the number two is there really a trade concern? So these are the two main objectives or basis as to why we are doing risk analysis. And at the end of it, no, the end point of this risk analysis is to come up with standards. So this is in relation to that. So another question here, have you partnered already with LGUs in this project? Yes, we have partnered LGUs all over the Philippines, no, particularly in the sampling and survey. So we went around the Philippines. We have identified areas to which we are going to obtain samples. So the first organization that we collaborate there are from the LGUs. So another question here, will the webinar also include how we can integrate or harmonize efforts among government and non-government organization? Um, I think that will be answered during the presentation of our food safety advisor, Mr. Dion Mahoney. Thank you. Oh, another question here. Will the how this project considered food commodities having varying properties? How did this challenge the progress of PRPP? So, oh, okay. So if you notice in the presented list of food hazard and food commodity combinations, these are being verified and requested by the food safety risk managers. No, so that's actually that will be discussed also with Mr. Dion tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much again for that. We have noticed that Dean Guevara's hand is raised. May we call the attention of Dean Guevara. Please feel free to unmute po. Pwede po kayong magtanong if meron kayong question. Good afternoon po, Dean.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I would just like to congratulate Assistant Professor Abby Rustia and her team for coming up with this very important webinar. I'm so proud of what you have accomplished for your project. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Dean, for your support.
You are welcome.
Thank you very much, Pauline, for that. It's really heartwarming. May we also uh, ask the rest of the group or the participants today if they still have questions, they can still direct their inquiries to our email. Please feel free to send us an email at riskprofilingph@gmail.com. Um, may we know if there are still other participants who would like to raise some questions right now? We would also just like to clarify the questions before. There will just to clarify, there will be no pre-assessment exam today. The pre-assessment exams or tests will be administered tomorrow up until Friday's webinar. And for those asking about unregistered participants, if they can be allowed to secure a certificate for this webinar, unregistered participants may be given certificates as long as they perform the pre and post assessment exams within 24 hours from the end of each webinar. Afterwards, the exam will only be exclusive to registered participants. So just to clarify that. Uh, there is one more question, and maybe we can ask Assistant Professor Ruscha. Ma'am, there is a question raised. May they clarify the roles of government regulatory agencies since the FSA or the Food Safety Act of 2013 stipulated that most processed commodities are under FDA's watch already. How can other agencies help on this?
Okay. With regard to the question as to how can other agencies help on this, um, both in the micro and chemical risk assessment, we ensure that all agencies under the Department of Agriculture as well as FDA will be involved. No, so if you notice, there is an equal chance of other agencies under the Department of Agriculture. Say, for example, we have. Can you post up the list? Um, can you post the list, please, to for them to view? So for DA, we collaborated with BPI. We have also from BPI for fresh produce. We have NMIS for meat and poultry. Then what else there? Okay, yeah, this is the list that we got. No? So this is in consultation actually with the food safety risk managers from the Department of Health, FDA, and the Department of Agriculture. So for year one, we have collaborated with BIFAR and PSP with the shellfish and the methyl mercury in sardines. Then we have NMIS with beta agonist in pork. So NMIS have provided us sufficient data for the beta agonist. And we have also nitrite. No? So we have 3-MCPD, we collaborated with FDA along with nitrite in these cured products. Then we have aflatoxin in peanuts, so we collaborated with BPI. And then we have also corn with BPI, and again, BPI for the inorganic arsenic. And for year two, which is more of the chemical hazard, again, we collaborated with DANMIS for salmonella in pork and salmonella in chicken. Then we have salmonella in desiccated coconut for FDA. Then we have BPI again for Listeria monocytogenes and in lettuce. Then we have BFAR for Vibrio parahemolyticus and Vibrio cholera in shrimp and oyster respectively. Then we have BPI with Bacillus cereus in rice. We have FDA with Chronobacter zakazaki in infant formula. Then we have again with NMIS for the Campi with chicken, BFAR with inorganic arsenic in tilapia, and methanol in lampanog. Although most of this, no, most of our activities, we collaborated with LGUs, particularly in going to their area for us to survey and sample. So I'm not sure if we have not if we were able to get all those other agencies under the DA to be part of this. With BOPS, no, we are actually having a positive collaboration with BOPS because we help each other. Some of our information will also be presented to them later on after completing the risk profile. I hope it satisfies your question. So another question here, is there any food safety risk for sin in lechon, considering the hog carcasses do not seem to go through meat inspection? So thank you for that question, but I think we have to verify with that with the regulatory agency which has jurisdiction on that particular commodity.
Thank you very much for that, Professor Ruscha. It seems like there's one question that was raised by Mr. Hero Galamgam. If you would allow me to read it, why is it that the ethnic foods from different regions in the Philippines are not considered for risk analysis and profiling?
For the ethnic foods, I think that can be answered later on with Mr. Dion, or perhaps Dion, are you there?
Maybe we can keep this question and we can present it for tomorrow's webinar.
Yes, yeah. I don't want to,
Yes.
So I think Dion can answer that tomorrow.
Opo.
So another question here, does the risk profile reports include epidemiological studies? If yes, do we work with DOH for this? I don't want to preempt, but yeah, you definitely will be working with them, no, with epi studies and DOH, no. If you will know later on, no, tomorrow with Dion, the process of risk analysis and the parts. So, yeah, that will be taken care of tomorrow. So another question here, how did the results differ to the standards, regulations, provisions by codex? Are the results just a verification based on the standards set by Codex? How did this? Uh, so for this, Codex is the reference standard for all WTO members. However, there is a provision that it does not limit us not to do our own. But of course, the standards that we develop should be harmonized with Codex because we are a member of Codex, of course. And that it is the reference body of standards by WTO. So I think that's the minimum. Unless you go beyond the minimum, then you have to justify risk assessment. That's why we are doing this risk assessment. So are the results just a verification based on the standards set by Codex? I'm not sure if the word is verification because this is our own national data. I think we need to come up with our own data. So perhaps the limit or set standard by Codex will be followed by us. So I'm not sure with the word verification. Thank you.
Thank you once again for our participants' questions, and thank you very much, Assistant Professor Yuscha, for answering them. Uh, I guess we are now ready. Ready to close the floor for questions. Rest assured that you can keep in touch with us through our Gmail, riskprofilingph@gmail.com. All right. Maybe we can accommodate this last question from a few final questions. Is it okay, Professor Ruscha?
Okay, yeah. I hope I can answer that.
Okay,
Okay,
last three final questions for this afternoon.
okay, sure.
So, someone has asked, how did the results differ to the standards or regulations or provisions by the Codex? Are the results just a verification based on the standards set by Codex?
I think I answered that already.
Ay, okay po.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
answered that.
The next one, they ask if organically grown products are part of the risk profiling.
Uh, I don't want to comment on that yet, on the word organically grown. No, so mainly because we do risk profiling for food safety. So I don't want to answer that yet. Maybe that can be answered later on, towards the end of the seminar.
All right.
So
And for the last one, in relation to the question, how did PRPP fare as compared to Codex? Did we obtain results setting limits lower or higher than the Codex?
mm, we are still gathering data as of the moment. And what we're trying to do with the risk profiling is that we are still trying to generate information whether those data are within the limits of Codex or above Codex or under the set limit of Codex. As of now, we cannot say anything yet because all the information are still in review. So we will have a separate information dissemination with regard to the results of the PRPP studies.
All right. Thank you very much. And this wraps up our question and answer. Once again, we are very grateful for everyone for joining us in today's webinar. Thank you for your inputs to the discussion, and thank you again, Assistant Professor Ruth Cha, for giving us a brief overview of the project, as well as for introducing the workshop topics for the succeeding days of the webinar series, and for all of the answered questions. Thank you. As we mentioned earlier, the link of the evaluation form is already up in the chat box. The link is bit.ly/FSRA101 pre-D1 and bit.ly FSRA101 post D1. So just to clarify the assessment, once again, the assessment tests will start tomorrow, but there is an evaluation form to be accomplished for today. So please find that in our chat box. Your responses in the evaluation form are very much appreciated and will be used for further improvement of our future PRPP webinars and workshops. We would also like to encourage everyone to subscribe to our social media accounts, especially to our YouTube channel, so that you can stay up to date with our webinar series updates. Thank you very much to everyone who joined with us. But before we go, we would also like to present to you the Philippine Food Safety Risk Profiling Project Team by our project leader, Assistant Professor Abigail S. Ruscha. This is now a photo opportunity for the rest of the team. We are now able to see the rest of the PRPP team. And now for a photo opportunity or groupie. All right, and there we go. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for your invaluable support. To know more about the PRPP and to be updated with our latest activities like this webinar series, you may also like our PRPP Facebook page, our PRPP Twitter account at Risk Profiling PH, and to subscribe to our PRPP YouTube channel. Thank you for all of us who have sent their questions. If you have further inquiries, once again, please feel free to reach us through our email, riskprofilingph@gmail.com, and please answer our evaluation form for today's session, which you may find the link at the chat box. Another photo opportunity with our research speakers. We are joined by Mr. Dion Mahani and Dr. Agnes Agunos. Hello po. Ready? 3, 2, 1, smile. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you ask also the dean to have picture with us?
Yes po.
Yes, I'm trying to look at the I don't know how to open my let me see, start my video. Yeah, can you see me now? Thank you.
Yes. All right. 3, 2, once again, 3, 2, 1, smile. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you and congratulations again.
Thank you,
Thank you
dean.
so
Thank
much
you.
po.
Thank you, Dion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doc Agnes.
Thank you, Dr.
See you tomorrow.
We hope that you can join us again tomorrow on our second day of our webinar series. And the topic for tomorrow's webinar is about risk assessment and overview by Mr. Dion Mahani. Stay safe, everyone, and see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Someone's asking if it's the same link for tomorrow and onwards.
We shall be resending the link for the webinar tomorrow, but this link will also be, it will be the same for the succeeding days po. On behalf of the PRPP and the rest of on behalf of the rest of the PRPP team and our project leader, Assistant Professor Ruscha, thank you so much po. We will be ending the meeting for all in a few seconds. Thank you and keep safe.